How many people do you attend?
We're live. Hi, everybody. This is Joanne again with Reaching Unlimited, and we have a special guest with us today because I know a lot of us are very concerned about the coronavirus, and so I wanted to bring somebody on that can help maybe calm our fears, give us a little update, kind of talk to us about what we're really facing. We were just chatting, and I'll let her talk about who she is and what she can bring to us. So Shari Caplan, thank you very much for being here. Can you tell everybody a little about yourself and that you're actually from Canada?
Yes, I am. So, hi. So, Dr. Shari Caplan, I'm medical director of Vitality MD. I'm an integrative physician. So, I kind of do a little bit of everything. Started off as family practice, women's health, and then learned a whole bunch of stuff about bioidentical hormones. And then that learned into naturopathic medicine and genetics and epigenetics. And basically, what do I tell people every day is eat right, exercise, de-stress, meditate, balance your hormones, and replace deficient nutrients kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, so I guess I would say I run mostly a preventative practice, but I see a lot of people who, have actually major complaints that haven't been dealt with in the regular conventional arena. And so I kind of think outside the box.
Which is important in today's world to think outside the box.
Right. And looking more for root causes as opposed to Band-Aids or just a prescription for every, a pill for every ill,
right,
kind of thing.
Which is very needed. And you really are a fish swimming upstream because you're in a country where you have government medicine, and you are actually going outside of that realm, and you started your own practice where you actually charge and doing very well at that because of people
Right.
understand the importance of what it is that you're doing.
Right. And so, so people get healthcare free here.
Mm-hmm.
So for people to actually pay out of pocket for a medical service, it must be either they're really not happy what they're getting elsewhere to pay, or that they really find value. So, and it was very hard to step outside the box to do that. But
But it's important because, what we're facing now, we're here to talk about the coronavirus. I think a lot of people are afraid of it because, one, we don't really know that much about it as a layperson. As we were talking before, even the medical professional world is learning about it as well. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the things that we need to know about this coronavirus?
So, how should I start? Okay, so, not to downplay what's happening with coronavirus. It is like definitely a pandemic and whatnot, but at the same token, I live in Toronto, and we had SARS in Toronto. And I remember the media at the time of SARS was more out of keeping with what actually was happening in Toronto. Yes, like we had to do all these precautions and whatnot, but we actually had things under control. People still socialized to some extent. We still went to movies and whatnot. Now is a little bit of a different scenario, and I'll talk about what the differences are. Mm-hmm. So essentially, we usually have influenza, right? It sort of starts in October and tends to wash out by April, May, but sometimes earlier, kind of thing. And influenza, is something that's been around, that's similar to the Spanish flu. It tends to affect the elderly, but sometimes young, healthy people can get very sick, and people die of influenza, right? Mm-hmm. And what we think the statistic is about less than 1%, maybe closer to 0.1% of people die from influenza. So, wow, that's something, right? But right. Happens every year. It's seasonal, and we survived it. And then, we've had SARS, which is kind of also similar to this coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And again, it sort of started around October and died by May. And so, there was a lot of things we did to try to contain it and, support people through it. What we know about Corona or COVID, if we want to go by the newer terminology, it's a similar but different virus. What it is, it's a lot more infectious, so it spreads much quicker.
Mm-hmm.
The death rate, we keep hearing so many different numbers. And when we look at stuff from Italy, it looks like, oh my God, it's up to 7 or 9% death rate, which sounds horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened is, like, if you're only looking at the really sick people, that's how many people you think you have. But actually, a lot of people get, COVID and may not even know it, may have a mild illness. And so if you don't have the right denominator, your death rate looks out of proportion. But it could also be that it's demographics. So Korea is one of the first places that instituted testing right from the beginning. So they have a little more accurate data, so that they sort of have a much larger denominator. And so they're actually looking at the death rate being closer to 0.6%. So yes, it's more than influenza, but not 7 to 9%. What they're also looking at is in Italy, they have a much older population. So they have older population, more, I think from what I understand, more comorbid disease, meaning having other illnesses that predispose them to being sicker when they get sick. So that's part of it. It seems like the older and being male and then having other health challenges make you more at risk of having not bad, but worse outcomes or being really sick. What's really going on, why there's such a major concern going on right now, is because it's such a rapid spread. And so if you imagine that, like, if everybody gets sick at once, we have this huge number. And so let's say 9 out of 10 people will be infected with Corona or COVID. 4 for sure are going to do well, no issue. 5 may be sick, and 3 of them may totally need to be in the ICU, ventilated and whatnot. But now if your denominator, there's so many people at the exact same time, it's basically what it's doing is overwhelming the healthcare system. So we only have so many ventilators and, ICU personnel and whatnot. So with social distancing and, keeping people separate and not, washing their hands and doing all these things and maybe taking certain supplements that may help the immune system, we, instead of have that large peak and everything happening at once, we're going to slow that spread and then maybe keep things a little bit, at a lower level that we can accommodate.
Right.
And also because we're being smarter, like, we understand that there's a lot of people who get sick and now know that they're not going to die. Right. And, it was kind of a smart thing that the governments were doing with closing down borders, because with air travel, like any place, anytime. And also because this virus tends to have a seasonal, if you kind of allow it to be anytime, any place, you allow it to exist longer. Whereas if you shut the borders, it stays within the local environment, it's going to die out because it has that shelf life.
Right.
Which is
so
good.
That's interesting, because I was reading about the shelf life. What is the time period that it can survive outside of a host? Like, I was reading about.
So let's talk about some other basics. So one was, originally we were worried that it was spread by air. Aerosolized. And so that's much more high risk and spreads, where this is more by droplets. So meaning when you cough, it's in a droplet and it touches something. So either it goes directly into your eyes, nose, mouth, or it's on a surface and you're touching it and then you touch your eyes, nose, or mouth or something to allow for entry. So the way we use precautions, we don't need necessarily it's called an N95 mask that needs to be fitted. So so it's really just kind of droplet control. So as a doctor, we would wear a gown, we would wear gloves, wear a glass, and just a regular mask. But if no one's coughing and sneezing and touching, then the spread's not that bad, right? So, so that's why they're talking about, wiping down surfaces. They think it lasts on a surface up to 72 hours, kind of thing. And so that's where, like, a lot of airplanes, they're like wiping things down and cleaning, and everybody should be cleaning, not shaking hands,
Yeah.
do the elbow thing or not doing anything at all. And, again, back to that social distancing, if you're reducing how many people you're being exposed to, you're less likely to get it. It doesn't mean you're not going to get it, because, stuff happens. But, I think there's so many things that we can do for our immune system to help support us and prevent us from, it's not going to prevent us from getting it per se, but prevent us from getting a bad outcome, or, kind of keep it minimal.
Right. So I did have in my notes the supplements that you talked about. What would be some of the things that we could do to build our immunity and keep us from?
So there's a list, but like the really simple basic ones is like vitamin D is like a huge thing. So, I mean, in an ideal world, we would know our blood levels and make sure our blood levels are in the optimal range, but we don't. Like if you actually look at influenza outbreaks and whatnot, and if you look at vitamin D status, what you'll see is where people are vitamin D deficient is where the outbreaks or cases happen, or places. And so basically, if you I can say generally for the next 3 months that everybody could take as much as 4,000 IUs of vitamin D a day and not overdose themselves. And so that should get your vitamin D in a really good range. Now, if somebody's already ODing on vitamin D, I don't recommend ODing more. And also at the first signs of a cold, believe it or not, you can booster vitamin D 50,000 IUs 1 to 3 days, and often that will nip things in the bud.
And that would be way more healthy than Airborne. Just throwing that out there. That would be way more healthy for you than Airborne. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
A lot of people, start taking a lot of Airborne or those kinds of things.
I don't know what Airborne is. Sorry.
Oh, it's a thing that you take that it just has a bunch of preservatives and chemicals in it. It's supposed to be good for your immune system, but yes.
So vitamin D, so that's a nice, easy one everybody can do, and do that right now. So B vitamins and zinc are often, again, good base things that help. So B vitamins are so integral to our well-being. So they're mood stabilizers, they give you energy, they feed the Krebs cycle. A lot of people have genetic SNPs that make them more prone to be low on Bs. So a nice complex B is something that's easy to do. You can even consider, if there's some clinics that have B shots, getting a B shot once a week or once a month or something again, but taking a B regularly. Zinc, depending on, your zinc status, is something that's important. You don't know what your zinc level is. If you're zinc toxic, you basically get a metal taste in your mouth, or your taste is altered. So that's a quick and dirty way to kind of know how you're doing with zinc. And again, you probably at this point can take 30 milligrams of zinc without getting into trouble. Other good things are, I deal with a product called Ganoderm that has Ganoderm lucidum in it. It's the reishi mushroom. It's highly anti-inflammatory, helps with gut health, but it's antiviral, antibacterial, antiparasitic, like it's sort of everything. And not only that, it gives you energy, makes you feel good, can help you lose weight. There's a company called Organo that sells it. There's other companies that sell it as well.
Mhm.
Again, it's a good booster. You can take it on a regular basis, and at the first signs of a cold, booster it.
Mhm.
There's other mushrooms or immune formulas. So mushrooms are notorious for helping the immune system. There's a supplement called colostrum, which is like, when you had mother's milk, that the colostrum first comes out and it's immunoglobulins. Well, they have that it is from animals, it's cleaned and whatnot, but taking it on a regular basis also helps the immune system. And again, you can booster it at the first signs of a cold. Liposomal vitamin C is another amazing thing. So high dose vitamin C, like 3 grams a day for 3 days in a row at the first signs of a cold, or just again, taking at least 1 gram daily,
Right.
and then boostering it as you need. So those are like a lot of
Mhm.
simple things. People can get easily access to them, and don't have to freak out. And then, of course, there's, echinacea and astragalus, and like the list is
Endless, yes. Yeah.
forever. But I think kind of giving that like short list is things that anybody can get their hands on and deal with.
I would say the first couple that you mentioned, a lot of us are deficient at anyway. So those are important ones
Oh,
to
and
take.
omega is also good, right? So, and then when you're really sick, like you want to help reduce the inflammation. So, high dose omega and curcumin.
Mhm.
So, because it's the inflammatory process that, allows for the leaky gut, lungs, and fevers and stuff like that. So,
So one of the things that was I'm hearing you talk, another thing would be getting out in nature, getting out into the environment, air, fresh air, all that kind of thing too would be really
for
helpful.
sure. So, I think the biggest thing is fear kind of gets us, right? So, one is the illness and whatnot. And then there's, um, you know, mindset. So you could have two individuals both be affected with the virus.
Mhm.
Obviously, their immune system and other things play into it, but also mindset. So if one is like, oh my God, I'm going to die from this, then biology of belief, your cells may be more prone to have a certain inflammatory reaction to it. And then the person who's that optimist and like, I'm going to survive this and my immune's strong,
Mhm.
may be more likely to be healthy and survive this. So like I love, Bruce Lipton, biology of belief. So our mindset does affect our biology.
It does. And there's studies to prove that. I'm just
Correct. Right.
supporting
And
that
there's
there
even
are.
placebo effects, right? So, if we can buy into that placebo and tell our body, but yes, and things that also affect our immune system. So is stress.
Yeah.
So if we're highly stressed, we're suppressing our immune system. So we're not actually doing ourselves a service. So doing things to get you more calm, meditation, exercise, walking in nature. If you're somewhere lucky enough that you could be walking on a beach,
Mhm.
walking on a mountain, like God bless, like do that.
Yeah.
So I think those are things, and exercise is a huge stress reliever. So I really like that. And
Mhm.
then the other thing that really affects our immune system is sugars.
Oh,
So when we're eating tons of carbs and going to town because it's comfort foods, we
mhm.
actually do suppress our immune system. So like it's that fine balance between eating to feel good
Right.
but not overdoing it, right? And
Exactly.
sort of saying, well, I'm quarantined and there's nothing else I could do, might as well go to town. That's not it either.
Right. Or sit and watch TV all day or, to be active. Like try to keep your life as normal as it possibly can be with
Correct.
being wise in the things that you're doing.
uh,
That would be the one of the important things, I
yeah,
think.
so that's good.
Um, so one of the things, like I was talking to somebody today who said, I have a sore throat. I think I need to go get tested for the coronavirus and is freaked out that they have it. Don't have a fever, don't have a cough. Yeah. How
So,
how do people know whether they really need to go see professional help or not?
well, they're sort of like, at least in Toronto and Ontario, they're setting limits on testing. So the thing is, they only have so many tests available, right?
Right.
And there's so many people are going to have it. And
Mhm.
again, most people are not going to die from this or get severely ill. And so, what they've actually done here is that you have to be over the age of 60, you
Mhm.
have to have comorbid disease, and you have to have symptoms.
Mhm.
So, like if you had a contact, like someone you've been exposed to who has corona, but you have no symptoms, they're not testing you.
Mhm.
So they want you in self isolation. If you actually start having symptoms, but you have no contact that you're aware of,
Mhm.
irrespective if you actually did have a contact and you don't necessarily fit under that criteria, oh, yeah. And they want you to have a fever over 38 degrees. So what is that? I don't know, 100 and
104.
I think I'm not 100%. Don't quote me. Sorry, Canadian numbers, but a significant
Right.
fever.
Right.
So sore throat alone isn't necessarily. So I think for sure, fever, muscle aches and pains,
Mhm.
cough,
Mhm.
feeling like crap. Yeah, I think it's worthy to get tested. But for the most part, they're actually telling people to stay home
Mhm.
and isolate themselves, take care of themselves. So if another thing to sort of talk about is to prepare yourself is make sure you have enough food that if you're living by yourself, you can't go out and get groceries or whatever. That's what you really need to stock up on, but you don't need to stock up for the next 3 months. If anything, groceries are being restocked and they're doing their best. And there's going to be a point where they're going to be overflowed because everybody already bought what they needed.
Exactly. Something
um,
about that today.
right.
It's putting a
Um,
false sense of what is actually needed into the marketplace right now, and we need to
right.
just
And then
calm.
what it's doing is it's also like, yeah, everybody's, it's supply and demand. And if they think there's a huge demand, they increase prices, which is so unfortunate, right? That's
Right?
not what we should be doing.
Now, if I have somebody who may be elderly and I'm caring for them that have this, what are some of the things that the caretaker may need to know to help?
Okay, sorry, the person has it and you're taking care of them.
Yes, and you're the caretaker of that person.
Well, basically, so you want to try to do as much protection as you can. So again, being on those supplements for sure,
Mhm.
wearing probably having gloves and a regular mask
Mhm.
if you can. If it's not available, then it's really, you know, washing your hands, doing the, wiping things down. Things that have alcohol in them are more effective, as well as bleach to wipe things down. Not touching your eyes, nose, or mouth. So let's say you're looking after them, you can definitely wear a pair of, big eyeglasses,
Uh-huh.
kind of thing.
Right. And that's
So
really important because a lot of people are really fixated on, doing all these ways of cleaning things. But the best thing to do would be alcohol and bleach instead of doing a lot of these. People are doing crazy stuff like lavender hand spray is supposed to be and Yeah.
until there's proof that that works, we know that for sure alcohol
Right.
wipes,
Right.
any product that has ethanol in it, and bleach. So you can put bleach in water, and probably vinegar in water would probably work too. Who knows?
Oh,
Um,
really? Okay.
so
Okay.
yeah, but so you know that's going to happen, right? So there, because everybody's going to be like, if you think 9 out of 10 people are going to have it,
Mhm.
that's a lot of people who's going to have it, but they're all going to be sick to different degrees. And in December there was this wicked bug that was going around, that was so bad that people were sick for a month. They had the most wickedest cough. It took them quite a long time to recover, and we didn't do anything, right?
Okay.
It's still like it. people were so short of breath. I got it. And I remember like I have mild asthma, but I rarely use a puffer. I was using my puffer. I couldn't exercise because my lungs were so affected, and I had to actually go on prednisone. So, you know, so like we kind of have to have that mindset that that's a regular thing that can happen, and it doesn't mean it's COVID.
Yeah.
Or for all you know, it was COVID and we just didn't know.
Exactly. Now, is this something that when you get it one time, you can get it again? Have they have any proof or statistics whether it's could
I don't know. Like from I just like 2 hours ago got a whole bunch of different information, and one of the things that they were looking at is taking antibodies or blood from people who are recovering. So people who've recovered from COVID actually are producing antibodies. So if we can then manufacture those antibodies, then we can give self-protection. The question is, how long do those antibodies last? So in influenza, I don't believe they last that long, hence why we always revaccinate, or because there's this antigenic shift, meaning the antigens on the flu virus change. And so when it changes, it doesn't fit exactly the antibodies that we've produced.
Where exactly did this come from? How was this brought into the system? I know it started in the animal market, but what is the basis to the coronavirus and how it affects us? Where did it start? What exactly?
I'll tell you, I honestly don't know. I know it was from zoology, so meaning it did come from an animal, but I don't actually know the history or how it jumped. They do sort of say that despite that it doesn't go from animal to human or human to animal. But
so if I have a cat or a dog and I have the coronavirus, I'm not going to give it to my animal.
Unlikely, but we're learning something new every day. So every couple hours.
Yeah. I was reading an article about a gentleman that was in China, and his cat passed away from it, but they couldn't prove whether it came from that person or whether it picked up this virus from somewhere else.
Right.
So that's the interesting thing.
Yeah. We don't know. Yeah, okay. We're just like learning all the time. And, some things that I got recently, I'll just, hold on. I'm just looking at my,
I see you all there. I'm into the conversation, so I haven't been saying hi, but thank you for being here, you guys. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat. That's what we're here for. Any questions you have?
So, things that we're sort of seeing is that supposedly in China, things are on the downward trend, that there's not been new hospital admissions. So that's a good thing. That doctors in India feel that they've successfully treated coronavirus, and that they're using a combination of different antivirals, and that they're suggesting the rest of the world do similar. So those are for patients who are really sick, not just for the average Joe. Although who knows, maybe, down the pipeline, they might say, like how we took Tamiflu for pretending we're worrying about SARS, that maybe something along those lines, although Tamiflu isn't actually one of them. That there are other places are, feeling that they have an antivirus to sort of combat. There's a 103-year-old who survived COVID. So, again, age alone doesn't determine everything.
And that's important for people to remember, is staying calm and not thinking you have it, which we've already talked about, doesn't mean you have a death sentence. It just means you have to take care of yourself. Correct. Be wise in the decisions that you make, and, let your body rest.
And it looks like that Israel or some other places are working on the development of a vaccine as well. So I think there's a lot of research happening at a very fast pace. The world is collaborating. So,
Do you think that when they do come up with something that it would take a year for all the studies that have to be done, all the testing, all that?
Sometimes what they do is they bypass, unfortunately, a lot of the studies. So it depends on how they feel the risk of, the risk of administering a vaccine against the risk of not, and make that decision. There's a process that they follow. So, it's usually it's something very specific to the virus, so it shouldn't cause collateral damage.
Okay.
And again, seasonally, things should, hopefully die down. So we're hoping like May, maybe June. It's going to last for a bit, but not forever.
Now they're talking about that, as soon as it gets warmer, we're going into spring, that it'll kind of die down, but they're talking that it could come back in the winter again. Do you have any ideas or not?
It's always a possibility, but again, because it might be such a short time from it going and coming back, that maybe we would all, because so many people would be affected, would have enough of those antibodies to last.
Okay. So even if it did, we could have built up.
And I think by then they for sure would have a vaccine, so that then they, just like the H1N1, right? There was this huge scare and whatnot. And then by the September, October, the season afterwards, they had the vaccine ready.
Yeah.
So that shouldn't be an issue.
So one of the biggest things that I keep hearing is there's uncertainty for pregnant women or for even newborns. What kind of precautions should they be taking? I know there's not enough data to know.
So unfortunately, like pregnant women, their immune system is down-regulated, so they don't reject the baby, and that sometimes they're more susceptible. But again, it is what it is. So they have to take precautions, and babies may have, let's say if mom got it in pregnancy, then there's this passive immunity, so the baby would be protected. If mom didn't get it and this baby's born, it's at risk, just like the rest of the population.
So it's the same thing. Be wise, wash your hands, clean everything off.
Don't invite everybody to come and kiss the baby. Yes.
Exactly. Which you should be doing anyway when you have a new baby. So, so what are some of the myths, the biggest myths that you think that people should be aware of? I know we've talked about quite a bit of them, but there's so many things out there that seem to be misinformation.
Well, I think that everybody thinks that once they get it, they're going to die. So I think that is like not truth, that most people will get it and likely have a mild case. And we just have to be, proactive and cautious, but not crazy.
How long is the time period from when you first get symptoms until it goes through I know it depends on the person, but in an average, what would be the time period of your sickness?
How long someone's sick, you mean?
Yeah, someone may have it.
I don't know. Like, I think it's sort of like you can start having symptoms anywhere between 5 and 12 days, maybe even longer from exposure. Once you have it, then again, it depends on the course that it's going to play out for you, right? So, some people it's like 5 to 7 days. Some people it's, this long drawn out thing that they're quite sick and they're in hospital. So I can't actually make that comment.
Depends on how severe you get it. So I was going to say no, forget it. I answered my own question. Wow, there's so many questions now. I'm listening to what may be in the collective to want to know. I think you've covered everything. Is there anything else that people need to be aware of? What are some of
I don't know, you is there any questions that anybody has?
No, they're all listening. They're not. Well, if you guys have any questions, please put it in the chat, because I think you really have covered it. I think a lot. what people are really afraid of. What's the best place for people to get real information?
I think a lot of the government agencies and public health all are posting all the time. So, we have government websites that we look at. As a physician, I get updates all the time, but I think the public health, the government, everybody's doing something. And, there's a lot of economics that are at play right now because, businesses are having to either close, shut down, decrease business. And, there's a lot of other scares going on, is like, how am I going to pay the rent or the bills or my employees?
Right.
And what, employees are like, I can't go to work, I can't pay my rent and whatnot. But I think the government, again, Canada, US, that we have different things going on, but I think that they're, creating a basket of funds to try to help support everybody through this. And we're all going through a hardship and realizing, I saw this on Facebook as, kind of a comment that somebody made that, our parents or grandparents were called off to war and the war happened, right? And life stopped and it was all about this, and risk of death was way higher than 6%, right? And now, we're faced with this virus and the death rate may be 0.6 to 6%, and we're really stuck being at home. Well, not really a problem in the big picture of things. And, while we're at home, we can contemplate life choices and what have we done and what's valuable and what's not, and, connectivity. So yes, you're not supposed to be physically being with people, but that doesn't stop you from picking up the phone or Skyping or, Facebook or whatever, and, learning how to exercise, how to be in the world without everything else.
And I think that's an important lesson because we're a society that likes to be, stimulated instead of stimulating ourselves by reading, by learning, by, interacting with people. We have this beautiful technology that our grandparents didn't have, where we can connect. Like, you're in Canada and I'm in California, and we're sitting here having a very, interesting conversation. So reach out to people, definitely. Right. I think that's the one thing about this, is people are so afraid that they're becoming more secluded. And that's not what you need to do right now. Reach out to groups on YouTube, Facebook, all the different social medias, connect with your friends.
And read all those books that you said you were going to read and never did.
Exactly. Meditate, or, do
have sex. No. Yeah. I'm the sex doctor, so sorry.
That's funny. I like that. Yes, that will make everybody happy. So good.
There'll be a lot of babies born in 9 months.
I was thinking that, like the Depression, all these babies were born, 9 months later. Yes. So yeah, I think, reach out. Don't go through this alone. For me, I really wanted to talk to people about, don't go through it alone. If you think you have symptoms, reach out, do education, educate yourself on it, and, have your friends around, have the people that you can trust around. Very important. Well, thank you for being here. I sure appreciate it. And thank you for your advice and for your words of wisdom. And I sure am so thankful that you came on, and hopefully nobody asked any questions. So but hopefully this was able to calm people down. And, really the biggest thing I heard you say is, don't freak out about it. If you get it, it's like anything else in life. Take one step at a time and just deal with it as it comes versus worrying about it if it comes.
Right.
So that's the biggest key to this whole conversation. So thank you all for being here and for listening. And I will catch you again. I had somebody on for tomorrow. We were going to actually talk about sex and love, and her children are home and she's dealing with sickness. So that's going to be postponed until next week. So this is it for this week. And thank you for being here.
And actually, I just wanted to say, so at Vitality MD, we actually offer the O shot, and that increases libido and sensitivity and that ability to have that, oh my God. So maybe one time we'll have a chat about that too.
Hey, the O shot. I'm very intrigued with that one. Definitely. And you know, that's a problem with women. So definitely, that would be very interesting. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And please, please take care of yourself. Be wise in everything that you're doing. Don't do anything that would be putting yourself in danger. And really stay calm. So thank you, Shari.